Welcome to SibSpot. Today's Reddit stories are from Am I the A? The first story today is from Puzzle-Headed Eb. Am I the bad guy for spelling out to my neighbors why their kids don't find treasures anymore? I work at a gold mine in northern British Columbia. I find pretty rocks every day. When my children were young, I would take them on walks with me and my main dog, Wilhelm. My kids would always keep their eyes open because our neighborhood was full of treasures. They would find diamonds, quartz, gold, pyrite, jewels, rocks I had polished in a tumbler, and fossils. The fossils were real. I found dozens every shift and would take them home and leave them around for my kids to find. I didn't care if other kids found these treasures. They cost me nothing but time and effort. Eventually, my kids grew up and had other things to occupy their time with than going out on walks with me. They still walked my dog when I was out of town at work, and they figured out that I was the one planting the rocks and fossils for them to find. Even after they told me they knew, I kept leaving the rocks around. In our neighborhood, it was a special little thing the kids loved. I think every child my kids' age and younger had a shelf full or box full of these little rocks I had left out. Now the problem. About 3 months ago, we had a new family move into the neighborhood. They had 3 young children, and I would see them out walking. Their children started finding the rocks on their walks. The mom got all concerned about someone trying to lure her kids with these things, and she spent her time figuring out who was doing this. She confronted me at my house about trying to lure her children with shiny rocks. I didn't want any problems from her, so I stopped leaving rocks out. My kids are home from college for the summer and have been walking my emergency backup dog, Chapo. They have been talking to their friends, and a few have mentioned that none of the younger kids are finding treasures anymore. They asked me about it, and I told them the truth about what this woman said. They told their friends, and it got around that the reason there weren't any more around was because of the weird accusation. Yesterday, the lady came back to my house and yelled at me for telling people it was her fault that the kids weren't finding treasures anymore. She said she has a right to worry about her kids and strangers. She said I was a because now she is being shunned by some of the other families with young kids. I don't know if what I did was wrong or if I'm an A. I always did it anonymously and never interacted with any of the kids while they were out walking. I just know how rumors get started, and I didn't want any of that. Am I the bad guy? OP, you are not the bad guy here, and everyone in the comments seems to agree. But I do think you should have just kept leaving the rocks around. Forget that lady who has obviously excessive stranger danger for her kids, which is a common thing in the United States. She can just get mad and learn from the others that this is what you do and the children love it. Let her tell her kids that they can't keep the treasures they find, and she'll become the villain real fast. Story 2 is by Mukday. Am I the A for paying for my daughter's wedding but not my son's? To make a long story short, my son was a teen dad. His girlfriend at the time got pregnant right after they graduated high school, and I practically raised their baby girl up until they both graduated college and got jobs. During this time, I had my full focus on my grandchild, which caused me to very stupidly not pay enough attention to my daughter. We've made up since, and I've been making up for lost time with her. The issue is I'm paying for her wedding, but I never paid anything for my son's. I felt like I'd already done and spent more than enough for their family, and there was no reason for me to. I got them a good gift and a chunk of change and deemed it enough. He's been causing issues with me and his sister about this and has been slandering us on Facebook, saying how it's unfair that I'm paying for her wedding but not his. I understand feeling a bit bitter, but I've spent way more money keeping his family and him afloat than I have on my daughter's wedding. Honestly, paying for her wedding doesn't even seem like enough for what I did. I don't know how to feel right now and would greatly appreciate it if anyone could give me feedback on this. OP, you are not the bad guy, and I am going to let somebody in the comments below tell you exactly why. Top comment by Select Anxiety. Not the bad guy. Tell them you used his wedding fund to raise their child for them. The next story is by Big Customer. Am I the bad guy for telling a school nurse I don't need a second opinion from an American doctor for a diagnosis made in Spain. I, 17 female, moved from Spain to the U.S. with my parents a year ago. I have a very rare and severe neurological condition, which is itself a subtype of a more common and less debilitating condition. When I say rare, I mean a 0.0001% recurrence rate. I was diagnosed in Spain a year ago before we moved. I've spent 2 weeks in the hospital. They ran all tests possible, even experimental ones. I eventually saw a specialist who's extremely well known in his field. He made the diagnosis and gave me a prescription. I went from 2 episodes a day to less than 1 a month. Now for the issue. A week ago, a new head nurse was hired at my high school. As an at-risk student, she asked to meet me. When I started describing my situation, she interrupted me, saying, "I know, blah, cut it short." Since it's on a whole nother level in terms of gravity and rarity, I still went ahead and described it. She interrupted me again and said, "This diagnosis is very unusual. Are you sure about it? I know a very good doctor. You sure you don't want to have a second opinion from an American doctor?" She stressed American. I told her that all the tests we ran a year ago, the diagnosis fits perfectly and the medication is working. I finally said that Spanish doctors are just as competent as American ones. I was calm, but it showed that I thought she considered Spain as a third world country. She rolled her eyes and said that I didn't need to get defensive. I told my parents when I went home. My dad, American, got on her side. I said he was free to spend dozens of thousands of dollars, what the whole process would have cost in the US, for the same diagnosis and to get me under opioids. He said I was overreacting and that I didn't need to be a jerk about it. But my mom, who's Spanish, understands my reaction given how mentally taxing this all is. I haven't heard back from the nurse, but I'm wondering if I overreacted. This one actually has a follow-up story a few days later. Update. Hi all. First, thanks all for the support. Based on your replies, I went to a teacher I trust and she told me I should report it. I met with the principal and my parents and the head nurse on Thursday. I'm glad I reported it because the nurse started off by saying that she still doubted the diagnosis and was reconsidering the process in case of an episode. I don't have a formal second opinion or diagnosis per se, but a neurologist here renews my prescription. The original documents were translated for the transfer of care process, so I brought them, even if they're already in my school medical file, to show the principal, along with a letter from the American neurologist, which I read out loud. I then thanked the nurse for her concern, but asked what it was based on. She was angry and asked why I didn't tell her about the American diagnosis. I said it wasn't one. The diagnosis was made in Spain. She asked the principal if the insurance were even okay with a diagnosis coming from there. She added she doubted they were even able to conduct all the tests. So I asked her which ones they had missed, to which she said, "I don't know, I'm not a specialist." I couldn't find a good comeback on the spot, but my mom laughed, and I think that was good enough. The principal ended the meeting and sent us an email on Friday saying the process would remain the same. My dad hasn't formally apologized, but he did say that she overstepped her qualifications. I'm glad I went ahead and reported it. I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't. Thanks again for all the support. Good luck to everyone out there struggling with the same issues. Stay safe. People are saying you are not the bad guy here. I wouldn't really call the nurse a bad guy in this situation, though. She's overly concerned and obviously has issues with, I don't know, Spain specifically, because it's not America. She thinks they have bad healthcare. But I can tell you, as someone who grew up in New York, all I can say is that the cost of healthcare in the US is an absolute joke. It's like a joke all over the world. Like, of the kind that we're not laughing at. This nurse definitely seems to be overstepping her bounds and may have some sort of bias against non-American diagnoses. Our last story is by Own Throwaway Fish. Am I the bad guy for using my friend's logic against her and making her cry? I, 36 female, went no contact with my narcissistic family member last year as I was done being their scapegoat. My friend was encouraging me to call my mother and reconcile for Mother's Day, and I explained, again, the emotional and mental abuse I went through and her refusal to take accountability or seek therapy. She then lectured me on how it's hard being a parent. She's a parent, I'm not. That as the eldest, you should have helped your mother around the house more with your younger siblings. And that I should let bygones be bygones and call my mother for Mother's Day. I told her, so you think that if I had done more chores and accepted more parentification as a kid, that I wouldn't have been abused? If it's too hard to be decent to your kids, then you shouldn't be a parent. Maybe you should have helped your abusive ex-husband around the house more. Maybe you shouldn't have had dinner 10 minutes late because, his job is stressful and it's hard being a provider and a father. Next month is Father's Day. Maybe you should call and reconcile with him. How could I, as a child, stop the abusive behavior of an adult when, as an adult, you couldn't stop your husband from abusing you? She cried and walked off. Our mutual friends agree she was wrong to pressure me to reconcile with my mother, but she meant well and didn't understand, and you took it too far. I did it to make a point on how abuse isn't okay from anyone, even your parents. Am I the bad guy? OP, you were pretty brutal to her, but you're really not the bad guy here. Your statement at the top about how you made it clear, again, about the mental and emotional abuse you went through made it blindingly obvious. Had you not told her about all of that before she insisted you should reconcile, then you'd be the bad guy. But she absolutely deserved your reacting in such, again, a brutal way. I think she'll understand not to bring this up again. Hopefully you guys can reconcile your differences now. That's it for today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed these. I've been struggling with how to say "am I the A" without saying the A word, since YouTube no longer allows swearing in videos, and I'm not 100% clear on when you can and can't and what words to say or not say. I'll still blur them all and change what they say just to cover my own A. Until we meet again, you all have a marvelous day.